Yeah, so my journey started when I was actually before I was even born. My chiropractic journey kind of started when my mom was a smoker actually her entire life. She started smoking cigarettes when she was 11 years old, and when my mom got pregnant with me, 48 years ago, she was still smoking, and she was kind of like a nervous person, a little bit like on the nervous side. And the obstetrician said, "Go ahead, keep on smoking. Use those cigarettes to manage your nerves through your pregnancy." And my mom did. And that was the thing that people did back then is what the MD said, that was like being spoken to by God, and they did what their MD told them to do, and she smoked throughout her pregnancy. And so when I was born, everything seemed pretty normal. I had a normal delivery, all of that. My first year of life had a normal development, all that. Everything seemed fine. And then one day when I was just before I turned 2 years old, my mom and dad took me to a friend's house, and I went into my very first allergy induced asthma attack. And it ended up being because I was allergic to the cats and dogs that were in their home. But that attack then almost killed me. I was in an oxygen tent for weeks, and obviously I survived. But my mom and dad took their little kid home. I was in one arm, and then in the other hand, my mom was carrying a bucket of drugs, and that's how I lived my childhood. I was on like 3 or 4 or 5 different medications just every single day. And I was the kid. I was that kid in school that was like, man, I couldn't run from like one wall to the other in the gym without being completely toast, without being completely winded and sucking wind, right? So by the time I was in the sixth grade, I was obese. I've actually weighed as much as I do now since I've been 11 years old, and I was significantly overweight. And that's kind of how my junior high school and then beginning of high school went. And then when I was 16 years old, man, you never know, right? I love BJ's quote, you never know how far reaching something you say or do today is going to affect lives of millions tomorrow. When I was 16 years old, my a friend of our family was over the house, and there was an incident at the house, and he said to my mom, "Why don't you take her to a chiropractor?" And my mom was like, "What?" like and the funny thing was then is that my dad was seeing a chiropractor probably for maybe like 20 years before that, because my dad had a really physical job. My dad laid floors for a living. So he saw a chiropractor all these years for the treatment of neck pain and back pain, but no one ever told him to take his sick, obese, depressed, fatigue, weak daughter to a chiropractor. So long story short, they obviously did. And when I was 16 years old, they got my first chiropractic adjustment, and that was it. It was like that first adjustment, it was like literally somebody turned the life energy on into my body. I can actually feel, I remember when I got my thoracics adjustment, I could actually feel energy going into my body, down my arms, into my fingertips that I never even felt before. And I remember that adjustment like it was yesterday. It was like 30 years ago. And that's